Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Nerdy Dad Bodcast. My name's Levi Bullard, or DM Dadbot on social media, and today is the 8th episode in which we're covering elves. They tend to base elves a lot after humans, but just tweaking their characteristics. One of the things is elves, they say, tend to be more slender, beautiful, and sometimes shorter than humans, though they roughly have about the same size. They also have the same skin colorations as humans. They have no facial hair, little to no body hair, and elves tend to favor the elegant clothing and jewelry and, bright colors. So elves live for over about 700 years. I think it's about 750 is their average lifespan. And so for that reason, they tend to be more excited than, or I mean, more amused than excited. They tend to be more curious than their natural greediness. Um, Elves tend to live in forests to hunt, gather, grow their food, using magics and things to sustain themselves and their forests around them. Unlike a lot of other, especially humans or orcs, they'll deforest the area to build their stuff. The elves definitely want to keep their area intact. They don't like having to cut down trees. Elves don't have a tendency to be miners, so they trade their clothing and jewelry for other types of metals and things like that. Elves, when they're children, they have a distinct name. That's it's their child name. Now, once they fully mature, they actually get an adult name. Elves also mature at a different pace than most people. The coming of age for an elf is around 100 years. So once they get to their about 100-year mark, they actually get to pick their adult name. Though, as you guys can call with like childhood nicknames, your friends or family are probably still going to call you by that childhood name. Now we're going to get into the elf racial traits. Base straight off, you've got an increase in your dexterity by 2. You get dark vision, and as much as everybody points fun at dark vision because almost every race tends to have it, I'm going to read off what the definition of dark vision is for anybody who hasn't read it or heard of it yet. And since this is the first time we're mentioning it on this podcast, yeah, podcast, get used to it. Dark vision. A monster with dark vision can see in the dark within a specified radius. The monster can see in dim light within the radius as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. The monster cannot discern color in darkness, only shades of gray. Many creatures that live underground have this special sense. So, if it's completely pitch black, you don't have any torches, you can still see. Just you see in shades of gray, and it only appears to be dim for you. If it's dim light normally and you can barely see, it's as if it was bright light. They also get keen senses, which gives them proficiency in the perception skill. They have Fey ancestry, so it gives them advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and they cannot be put to sleep with magical means. Elves aren't specifically weird about getting put to sleep or things like that because they don't even have to sleep normally. They have the trance ability, which means they don't need to sleep for that full 8 hours. They go into a deep meditation for 4 hours and still get the benefits of a long rest. So that definitely helps out. They speak Common and Elvish. Elves have 3 different subclasses that are in the player's handbook, and we're going to go over each one of them, breaking them down first with High Elves. Now, High Elves are your stuck-up elves, those elves that you usually think of kind of right off the bat. They like to be all by themselves and seclusive in high elf only cities. They believe themselves to be better than everybody else, even other elves. Um, so bringing one of those, you will probably want to have a specific reason your character is in that party, or what kind of brought them out of that society. Is that something that they didn't like about it, so they went off adventuring? Something to think about for your character creation. You get an intelligence increase by 1. You get your proficiencies with longbows, long swords, short bows, and short swords. And for the high elf, you get 1 cantrip from the wizard spell list. Then you have your wood elves. Wood elves get keen senses, or have keen senses and intuition. They're the stealthy, quick trackers, if you would say. Which this is kind of why the wisdom score definitely applies. You get an increase in your wisdom score by 1, and then you also get your proficiency in your short and long swords, short and long bows. Kind of like the high elf, it's still a heavily inspired ranger class. You get fleet of foot, which increases your base walking speed from 30 to 35, and you can attempt, this is the really cool one, you can attempt to hide when you're only lightly obscured, say by foliage, heavy rain, snowfall, or other natural phenomena. Then we get into the dark elves, or the Drow. They're elves infused with the magic of the Underdark, which is another kind of plane of existence that we're going to get into later when we dive into different planes and things like that. But think of it as the underground, so way deep under. It's where a lot of monstrosities and things like that live. A lot of horrible stuff you don't want to see. Um, so Drow are used to underground living. They get superior dark vision because of that to 120 feet. So it essentially is like dark vision, but out to 120 instead of your normal 60. They have sunlight sensitivity, which gives disadvantage. Yes, disadvantage to them on attack rolls, wisdom checks, and for any time you or your target are in direct sunlight. You don't even have to be in direct sunlight if your target is. Now, you also get Drow magic, and that's, the Dancing Light cantrip at level 1, you learn Fairy Fire at level 3, and then you learn Darkness at level 5. This is where they mix it up with your weapon proficiencies. As a Drow, you get a proficiency in rapiers, short swords, and hand crossbows. And they also get a charisma increase by 1. I think that's more or less for like intimidation versus persuasion, but it all checks out, right? That's actually going to wrap it up for us. We're not going to deep dive too much into what each of these sub races are, because we already dived into the elf. Now, if you guys want to hear more about any of the sub races, let me know. But until next time, what's your favorite type of elf? And is there a reason why? Or did you just hear of that one first? Let me know.